Dear students, today we would be doing the objectives of government budget. We have done what is government budget. When I talk about government budget, it is a statement which shows the expected revenue and expected expenditure of the government during the fiscal year. That is what I say government budget is. So when I say why the government makes the budget, there should be some objectives. To fulfill those objectives, the government must be making the budget. For doing anything in the economy, we should be having the objectives. Similarly, the government budget also has certain objectives. Today, we are going to study those objectives. The first objective of the government budget is GDP growth. The major objective of the government budget, every country needs to increase its GDP. When I say GDP, as our Prime Minister generally talks that we should be the 5 trillion economy. Every country wants that the economy of the country should boost up. Similarly, India also wants that the country should boost up, the economy should grow. How the economy should be growing? If there is more and more GDP growth. How the GDP of the growth of the country can be possible? Through the budgetary policy of the government. When I talk about the GDP growth, all of you should be very clear in your mind that what actually GDP is. GDP is the sum total of the value of all the goods and services produced within the domestic territory of the country during the financial year. So, means GDP will grow if we are producing more and more goods. GDP will grow if our employment opportunities, our production capacity of the country is increasing. How the government through the budgetary policy. What is budgetary policy? When I am using the word budgetary policy, it means that the government through its income and expenditure policy. The government is earning through capital receipts and revenue receipts that we had discussed. The government is spending where that we had discussed. So through the budgetary policy, the government can increase the GDP growth. So for increasing the GDP growth, there should are the 2 points. One, by making the public investments. Government should be making the public investments. How the government should be making the public investment? There are many government enterprises where the government can make the public investments. The government can increase the infrastructure of the country. There the government can make the public investments. So whenever the government makes the public investment, what happens with it? The people of the country will get more employment. The output of the country increases, employment increases, income increases, and the GDP of the country ultimately increases. By inducing the private entrepreneurs to invest in the country, by offering various subsidies, by having the good infrastructure of the country, the government of the country can induce the private entrepreneurs to invest in the country. When there would be the bullish conditions in the country, when the demand is more, or we can say when the infrastructure of the country is highly developed, we are having a good transportation system, we are having a good communication, telecommunication, good banking facilities, good warehouse, good insurance facilities. All the infrastructure, if it is developed, it means that the private entrepreneurs are induced to invest. Moreover, if the demand in the economy is more, the private entrepreneurs are ready to invest in that economy. So what the government will do? The government will induce. It could induce the foreign investment in the country. It could induce the other domestic private investment in the country by developing the infrastructure of the country. So GDP growth, by either the growth is done, either the production of the goods and services is increased by making the public investment, or by using the private sector investment, either by providing the subsidies in the set zones. We have to induce them, we have to give some incentives to them. That's only the reason behind the private entrepreneurs being investing in our country. So the second reason, allocation of resources. When I say allocation of resources in every country is limited. So those resources are used by the private entrepreneurs to earn the profits. But what the government wants? The government wants the social welfare also. So when I say allocation of resources, resources are allocated. Resources are distributed in such a way so that there should be a balance between the profit maximization and social welfare. It should not only be the profit maximization. It should also be accompanied with the social welfare. Those goods and services should be produced which not only maximizes the profit, it should also be doing the social welfare. Those techniques of production should be adopted which not only increase the profit but also it's giving employment to the people. So resources are allocated by the government through its budgetary policy in such a way so that the goal of profit maximization and social welfare, they are balanced. It should not only be profit maximization. It will not work. It should not only be social welfare. If it is only social welfare, where are the producers going to earn from? They would not be inducing to invest in that country. So, how the allocation of resources would be there? By imposing taxes on the hazardous goods. Now, when the government wants that these goods should be, these goods do not provide the social welfare to the people of the country, but they are providing the high profits to the producers. So what the government does? The government put taxes on those goods. Like for example, alcoholic products. Government wants to discourage the production of alcoholic products. That's why the government has put a heavy duty on these products. Like these days we have seen in the Delhi, the government has put 70% more taxes on the alcoholic drinks. So why the taxes are imposed? To reduce or to discourage the sale of these goods. So that is what the government through its budgetary policy can do. It is increasing the taxes on those products which they want not to sell in the market. To provide subsidies on socially useful goods, the goods which are socially useful like the medicines or like whatsoever is needed by the people of the country. On those goods the government gives subsidies. In this way, so that the people, the subsidies to the producers, so that the producers are producing more and more of those goods. In this way, the government balances between the profit maximization and social welfare. How? By imposing taxes on the hazardous goods and providing subsidies to the goods which are socially beneficial for the people of the country. So, allocation of resources, hope so clear. After the allocation resources, it is provision of public goods. Students, public goods, I think we had studied about the public goods in 10th standard. When I talk about the public goods, those goods which are for the collective use of the public, like street lighting, that is a public good. If we say that we could all be just putting the lighting in the streets by ourselves, that's not possible. If we talk about the public transportation, that is a public good. When we say the law and order of the country, or we can say the defense goods, those are the public goods which satisfy the collective needs of the people. Which satisfy the collective needs of the people, and it is provided by the government itself. It's not possible that the private entrepreneurs are providing it. Yes, they can, but then we have to pay a huge amounts for it. If the street lighting is being provided by the private enterprises, then it would be very costly for us. The government is providing us the public goods which satisfy our collective needs, like law and order, defense of the country, street lighting, how the country is working. Those are the public goods. On the public goods, what the government has to do? The government has to spend the amount. The government, by increasing the expenditure, or it's allocating its resources in such a way so that it is making provision for the public goods. Fine? Provision for public goods means the government is itself doing the expenditure in the field of law and order, defense, street lighting, sewerage, and all those public goods. That is one of the objective of the government budget, that it should be providing a certain amount for the development of the public goods. So, after this point, we are having redistribution of income and wealth. Redistribution of income and wealth. If I say in my country, the rich people, we are having a handful of rich people, and maximum of the people in our country are poor. So what we can say, there is a huge gap between the richer section of the society and the poorer section of the society. So we want equality. This is what we are talking about, the redistribution of income and wealth. To provide the equality, students, it's not possible for the government to take away the money from the richer section and distribute it to the poorer section. That's not possible. So how the government is redistributing the income and wealth? It is by its taxation and subsidies policy. By imposing the taxes on the richer section of the society and by giving subsidies to the poorer section of the society, the government tries to redistribute the income and wealth. For example, let me talk about the Ujjwala Yojana by Prime Minister Modi. When I talk about the Ujjwala Yojana, it is providing the gas cylinder, that all of us knows that LPG cylinder is given to us at the subsidized rate. What the government did? The government asked the people of the country to voluntarily just withdraw their subsidy, voluntarily withdraw themselves from the subsidy that is provided to them by the government. When they withdraw the subsidy or when they leave the subsidy that is provided by the government to the people, when we are rich enough, all the richer persons, what they did? They withdraw the subsidy, they left the subsidy that is provided to them by the government. When that subsidy is left, that's the government, then what the government did? The government provided the cylinders free of cost to the poorer peoples who do not or who were not able to afford the basic price of the cylinder. So that is what they are saying. Taking the subsidy from the richer section and providing that subsidy to the poorer section, they are redistributing the income or wealth. Similarly, imposing more taxes on the richer section of the society and with those taxes providing the free food grains to the poorer section of the society. In this way, the income and wealth can be redistributed. What it does? It brings the social justice and economic welfare. Social justice, it is the social justice that everyone should be treated equally. Everyone should be having the equal amount of money, but it's not possible. We can do it only by increasing the taxes on the richer section and by giving subsidies to the poorer section. This is how the government redistributes the income and wealth. The fifth objective is balanced regional growth. When I talk about the balanced regional growth, it means that all the regions in the country should be having the balanced growth. But it's not there. There are some regions of the country, like we can talk about Punjab. Punjab is a highly developed country. But if we compare it with the countries like Bihar, Chhattisgarh, they are not the highly developed countries. So, highly developed states, what is there? The regional growth is not there. So, how the government could be bringing the regional growth through its budgetary policy or through the government budget through its expenses and revenue policy? How it is going? In those regions which are economically backward regions, what the government does? The government has established the SEZ zones, special economic zones. What the government is giving? The government is giving the land in those particular places at the subsidized rate. The land is provided at the subsidized rate, then they are given the tax holidays. Like you start the factory right over in the backward region and you would not have to pay the tax for the first 5 years. The government is giving the concessional rates of the electricity right over there. Electricity would be provided to you at the subsidized rate or the concessional rates. So this is what the government does to have the balanced regional growth. If there is not a balanced regional growth, the people in the one part of the country would be poorer and the people in the other part of the country will be more. And in this way, what would happen in our country? The more and more migration will happen. The people from the other states would be going in search of employment opportunities to the prosperous states of the country. Like at this particular time, you can imagine, if you are watching the news channels and all such, that how migration of labor is taking place. So that is what the government does not want. The government wants the balanced regional growth, which by the development of the backward region through the budgetary policy it is doing. By having the liberal taxes in the cess zones, by providing the free electricity, by giving the tax holidays. After the balanced regional growth, the another objective is employment opportunities. So, how the government would be providing the employment opportunities? When the government is investing in the public enterprises or government is inducing the private entrepreneurs to invest in our country. Both the ways, the government is providing the employment opportunities to the people of the country. Another way the government is providing the employment is Manrega, MG that we have studied. To the poorest section of the society, the government is providing 100 days of the employment in the rural areas. Many other employment schemes we have studied in our 10th class. We would further be studying in our Indian economic development how the government is providing the employment. So, to provide the employment, the government has to invest when the government is doing expenditure in the public welfare programs, or we can say public works department. It is when it is making the roads. It means it is providing the employment opportunities. So, by doing the expenditure in the economy, the government is providing the employment opportunities. The last objective of the government budget is economic stability. In an economy, there are various business cycles. Business cycles, we could be having a recession period, we could be having a depression, we could be having a recovery and boom. Let's study it with the help of this. This is the boom period. This is the boom period. These are the business cycles. We are having business cycles like this. This is the boom period, which we say as the when the inflation is at the peak rate. Now, after the boom period, it is must in the economy that the recession comes. Here the recession comes. This from here to here we are having a recession period. When the recession comes, it means that the inducement to invest is less in the economy, the aggregate demand is coming down. All such are the characteristics of the recession period. When the recession is at the peak, when we are having full recession in the economy, it means we are at the period of depression, which we say deflation also. So, at the time of deflation, no inducement to invest. What we have studied in the last chapter when we had talked about the deficit demand, this is the condition of the deficit demand. It will not be prevailing for a very long time. After this, we would be having a recovery period. From here to here, we are having a recovery period. How the recovery is being done in the economy? The government now itself start investing in the economy. They are providing employment. They are using the public-private entrepreneurs to invest in the country. So, the period would be of the recovery. The economy starts recovering itself. The aggregate demand starts increasing. And after that, we are again on the peak of the when the aggregate demand is at the highest level. That would again be termed as a boom, or we can say it is the inflation. In this way, the cycles keep on going. So every time when we were studying that the earlier chapters when I was talking about the aggregate demand and aggregate supply, you have seen that we are always on the equilibrium position. Wherever there is a more aggregate demand or less aggregate demand, something is done in the economy to again have the stability in the country. Both the periods, let it be the depression period or the boom period, are not good for any of the economy. So how the government brings the economic stability? The government do the investment expenditure or increases the taxes. So if we are in the stage of inflation, then what the government does? The government decreases its expenditure. Government decreases the expenditure so that there would be less income of the people, the money is sucked from the economy, and the stage of inflation could be tackled. Similarly, when there is an inflation period, the government puts higher taxes on the people so that the disposable income should be less with the people. When there is a deflation, the government increases the expenditure and reduces its revenue or reduces the taxes so that more disposable income could be with the people. Economic stability, in the economic stability the government also provides subsidies. Subsidies and taxes go hand by hand. If the more taxes are imposed, it means the less subsidy should be given. And if the less taxes are imposed, more subsidy should be given. So this is how, these are the 6 objectives of the government budget. If I say how you have to learn these 6 objectives, this is a very important question of the government budget. The government budget itself is the only chapter which consists of 6 marks. Otherwise, what's in our macroeconomics? We are having the units. In our first unit, we are having 4 chapters. In our second unit, we are having 2 chapters. In our third unit, we are having 3 chapters. It is the 4th unit. It is having only 1 chapter. So in this, further we are having 5th unit where we would be having 2 more chapters. So it is the only chapter from where we would be having a 6 marks question. One of 4 marks, another one of 1 marks. So when I say 4 marker question, it could be the objectives, it could be the components of government budget, and one more topic we are left, that is the deficit financing. So when we talk about the objectives, in the question paper what the examiner asks, explain the following objectives. Like provision for public good, balanced regional growth. Or it could be asking, explain GDP growth as the objective of government budget. Explain GDP growth as the objective of government budget. So you have to elaborate the GDP growth in the 4 marker question. So it is, now you have to expand. Now you have to first tell what is GDP, then how the GDP growth could be done, how the government is making the public investment in which industries, how the government is inducing the private entrepreneur. Now you have to expand it for 4 marks. If the question comes, explain the following 2 objectives. Now you have to explain GDP growth for 2 marks. You have to adjust your content according to the marks of the question. So you cannot leave any of the point because the specific points can be asked in the question. So all these 7 points are important. You have to learn all the 7 points. Moving further, now we will be talking about the budget deficit. When I talk about the budget means the expenditure and the incomes of the government. Budget could be of 2 types. One is a balanced budget, another one is an unbalanced budget. When I say balanced budget, it means that the income and expenditure of the government are same. Then it is balanced. Whatsoever the government is taking as a revenue, it is spending it. When I talk about the unbalanced budget, it means the income and expenditure are not the same. Expenditure could be more or the revenue could be more. When the expenditure of the government is more than its revenue, then we say that it is a deficit budget. When the expenditure is more, it is deficit budget. When the revenues are more, it is surplus budget. The situation of the surplus budget is rarely seen in the economy. We are never having the surplus budget. Every time whenever the budget is, the finance minister presents the budget, it is the deficit budget. Deficit budget means we are having the expenditures more than the revenue. So when the expenditures of the government are more than the income or revenue of the government, then we are saying that we are having the deficit budget in the country. Now the deficit budget is further divided into 3 types. One is the revenue deficit, fiscal deficit and primary deficit. When I say the revenue deficit means that the revenue expenditure of the government are more than the revenue receipts. Revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Revenue expenditures are more, revenue receipts are less. So when we talk about the revenue expenditure and revenue receipts, these are the expenditures done on the welfare programs. Revenue expenditures means those expenditures which are done for the welfare programs which do not increase the assets or reduces the liability, that are the revenue expenditures. When I say there is a revenue deficit, students, you are only going to learn the definition of revenue deficit. That it is a difference between the revenue expense and the revenue receipts. What we say, it's a difference when the revenue expenditure is more than the revenue receipts. But to further increase your knowledge or to tell you what the revenue deficit is, when the government does more welfare programs, when the government does expenditure more on the welfare programs, like it is providing midday meals, it is giving old age pension, it is providing subsidies, all those expenditures are the revenue expenditure, and revenue receipts are tax and non-tax receipts. When the government is receiving less tax and government has to do more welfare expenditure, then we are having the revenue deficit. What could be the implications of revenue deficit? What could happen when we are having the revenue deficit in the country? We cannot say that we are having 100 rupees in our pocket and we are going to spend 110 rupees. That's not possible for us. So, how the government would be doing, what would be the implications? Implications mean that in case of the revenue deficit, what would be done by the government? So, let's assume in our own house, in our own family, if we are having 100 rupees, how could we spend 110 out of it? First thing what we can do, we can reduce our expenditure. We can just lower down our expenditure to 100 rupees. Similarly, the government does. The government lowers down its expenditure. How the government would be lowering down its expenditure? The government would now be not doing more expenditure on the welfare programs, as revenue expenditure is itself done for the welfare programs itself, for nothing else. Fine. Second thing what we could do, we could take loan to do that expenditure. If we are not having 110 rupees in our pocket, only 100 rupees, 10 rupees can be taken as loan. Similarly, the government can take the loan to do the expenditures. It would not be cutting down the welfare expenditure. It could be taking the loan to increase the revenue. Now loan would be the capital receipt, not the revenue receipt. So loan could be taken to meet the requirements of the revenue expenditure. Thirdly, what the government could do? The government could sell something. The government could do the disinvestment to keep the pay, to just have these two things equal. If the government is doing the disinvestment, again that is a capital receipt. So by doing the disinvestment, I think everyone is now clear with the disinvestment word. When the government sells its share in the public enterprises in the to the private hands, that is a disinvestment being done by the government. So when we are in the situation of revenue deficit, these three implications could be done. Either reduce your expenditure, or take a loan, or do disinvestment. So this is what we are having in the revenue deficit. Now let's come to the fiscal deficit. When we are talking about the fiscal deficit, it is the difference between the total expenditure minus total receipts other than borrowings. Now, total expenditure, capital expenditure as well as revenue expenditure, total receipts, capital receipts and revenue receipts, but we would not be including the borrowings in it. Okay, this is the fiscal deficit. Total expenditure minus total receipts other than borrowings. It's very important. You can never leave other than borrowings. Now, if we are taking only the borrowings, then it becomes the gross fiscal deficit. Gross fiscal deficit constitutes all the borrowings. Fiscal deficits are either the difference between the total expenditure minus total receipts other than borrowings, or it is itself equal to the borrowings of the government. So, when I talk about the borrowing could be from RBI, borrowing could be from abroad, from IMF, from World Banks, or from the other governments, other international banking institutions, or borrowing could be at home, which we are saying public debt or public borrowings. So these type of borrowings the government can raise its fiscal deficit. This is also termed as a gross fiscal deficit. Now students, what happens? When we are again, the government is again and again borrowing, the credit worthiness of the government decreases. When again and again we have to go to the IMF, then what would happen? The IMF will say that the government is earning nothing, again and again it is coming to us for taking the loan. It means that the economic condition of that particular country is not very good. So it, after a particular point, it refuses the loan to the government of the country. Secondly, there could be a crowding effect. Crowding effect means that when the government is borrowing either from RBI or from home, public borrowing, it means that the maximum amount that is lying in the banks goes towards the government. The people or the general public are left with very less to be taken as the loan. That is known as the crowding out effect. So that could also happen with the fiscal deficit. What we are leaving for our next future generations, we are leaving a laggard economy for our future generations, where they have to pay back those debts which the present generation is taking. So that are the implications of fiscal deficit. That's, I'm just telling you the implications. You are not going to cram those implications. That is just for to increase your general knowledge. We are only concerned about the definition and the formula of the fiscal deficit. Now, the third type of deficit is the primary deficit. When we say primary deficit, it is the fiscal deficit minus interest payments. Fiscal deficit is the deficit inclusive of interest payment. It is known as inclusive of interest payments. Interest payments. It means that if we had taken the loan of 100 crores, it means that whatsoever interest we have to pay, that is in the fiscal deficit. Our borrowing is 100 crore. When I talk about the primary deficit, suppose out of this 100 crore, 50 crores were our interest payments. If anyone is giving us the loan, it means that that loan is provided to us at the certain interest rate. So interest we have to pay. If total fiscal deficit is of 100 crores, we had taken the loan from the World Bank or from home, from RBI of 100 crore. Out of that 100 crore, 50 crores are going towards the interest payments. It means we are having the primary deficit of 50 crores. 50 crores we are taking to pay off the interest. It means primary deficit is the fiscal deficit irrespective of interest payments, or we can say it is exclusive of interest payments. That was inclusive, that is exclusive of interest payments. Exclusive of interest payments. So 50 crores are actually used for the welfare programs or for the investment programs, not all the 100 crores. Out of that 100 crore, 50 crore is our obligation towards the interest payment. Students, with the primary deficit, we are having one more term termed as zero primary deficit. When I say zero primary deficit, it means that fiscal deficit should be equal to interest payments. If we are taking the entire loan to pay the interest payments, then the primary deficit will come zero. If we are taking the 100 crores of loan and that 100 crore is given as the interest payments, then our primary fiscal deficit will come as zero. Then it is termed as zero primary deficit, that all the loan is taken just to fulfill the interest obligations of the country. That is the worst situation any country could have, that whatsoever loan is taken, that loan is only taken to pay off the interest that is on our earlier debts. So that could be the worst condition for any other country. So these three deficits, you have to do only the definitions of the deficit as well as the formulas to calculate that. The next type of question that we get from this chapter is classify the following into capital expenditure, revenue receipts, revenue expenditure and revenue receipts. If you get this type of question, that is a 4 marker question, you could be getting 2 items and you have to classify them. Or you could be getting 4 items, you have to classify them. Classification does not only means that you are going to classify them either into the capital expenditure, capital receipts, revenue receipts or revenue expenditure. You have to give the reason. For doing this, first write what is capital expenditure. Expenditure being done Either liability increases or asset reduces. This is the capital expenditure. When we are going in the market doing expenditure, either if we are doing expenditure, if we are doing expense in the economy, then what happens? Either we are increasing our asset, we are purchasing something, or we are giving back the loans. Opposite it for capital receipts, neither the liability reduces nor the asset increases. When I talk about revenue expenditure, expenditure is done, but neither the assets are, if I talk about revenue expenditure, so it would be the opposite of capital expenditure. Neither the liability is decreased nor the asset is increased. So let's talk about the capital receipt. If we are receiving the money, either we are selling the assets, so asset is decreased or liability is increased. So this is how we are having it. So firstly you should be writing like this, that this is our capital expenditure, this is the definition of capital expenditure, this is the definition of capital receipt, and opposite is for revenue expenditure and revenue receipt. So let's come to the first point. Construction of school building. We are talking about the government expenditures and government receipts. When I talk about the construction of school building, if the government is doing expenditure on constructing the school building, it means that school building will be the asset for the government, and that asset is increasing. Now where the asset will increase? When the government will do capital expenditure. Now how you have to answer? You have to answer, it is a capital expenditure done by the government because the asset has increased by constructing a school building in the economy. So you have only to give the specific reason that your asset is increasing. You cannot give the reason that it is a capital expenditure because it either increases the asset and reduces the liability. You have to be very specific in your answer. Then only you would be going to get marks. If you got it that it is a capital expenditure and you have not given the reason, in economics true false has no marks, or only classification has no marks. You have to classify it by giving the reason itself. When I talk about gift tax, all the taxes you know is a revenue receipt. All the taxes whatsoever, when there is a word tax, so tax is a revenue receipt for the government. Now you would be answering for the revenue, you would be answering because it neither decreases the asset nor increases the liability. Now you have to give both the reasons. Neither decreases the asset nor increases the liability. Fine. So this is how you have to answer. Whenever there is a capital expenditure or capital receipt, you have to specify whether the effect is on liabilities or effect is on assets. But when it would be the revenue receipts or revenue expenditure, then you have to give both the reasons. Like dividends on investment made by government. When I thought that government has made certain investments and it is getting the dividends on those investments, government has purchased the securities. When the dividend is received, it means that it is received means receipt, capital receipt it could be, not the assets are decreasing, not the liabilities are increasing. So it would be the revenue receipts. The reason would be same, neither decrease in assets nor increase in liabilities. If I say receipts from sale of shares of public sector enterprises, undertakings. Receipts from sale of public sector undertakings, receipts means that it is a capital receipts. Why capital receipts? Because assets are going out, this is disinvestment. The government is selling its shares to the private sector. So assets are reducing. That is the capital receipt because the assets are being reduced. We have to be specific because it is the case of reduction in the assets. Liabilities, we will not write anything about the liability. Borrowing from the public, again it is a receipt, now it is increasing the liability. So it would be the capital receipt because liability is increased when the government is borrowing from the public. Similarly, profits of PSU, public sector undertakings. So profits are the receipts, that would be the revenue receipts, Now you would be giving both the reasons, neither the decrease in asset nor the increase in liabilities. Repayment of loans received. When the central government gives loan to the state government, it becomes the asset of the central government. When it receives back those loans, it means the asset will decrease. So it would be the capital receipts as assets has decreased. Repayment of loans received, central government providing loans to state government. When repayment is received, then it would be the reduction in the asset. Subsidies or grants given to the state government. When it is giving the subsidies or grants, it means it has not to take it back. So it would be the revenue expenditure. The subsidies are given to the state government. Revenue expenditure, you would be writing it neither decreases the liability nor increases the asset. So in this way, the question can come that you have to classify the particular element. The question could be the 4 points, the 2 points, wherever the question comes, what you need is firstly classify it. If it is capital asset, capital receipt or capital expenditure, then give a particular reason, either in terms of assets or in terms of liability. Do not give both the reason, you would not be awarded any marks for it. But when it comes for revenue expenditure and revenue receipt, then you have to say neither and nor. Right? So these questions could also be the part of this chapter.